Okay, hi YouTube. Thanks for all the wonderful comments off the last video. It's given me a little bit of encouragement to keep going. I'll do what I can to get something out every week or two. Definitely, I can commit to fortnightly. My team's telling me you got to stay focused a little bit on producing the neo-shamanic society content. But anyway, I've got more to share, and I'll do as much as I can. So today we're going to talk about the March equinox, Aries in the solar eclipse portal, the old planetary operating system, and how it's, about a year or two ago, we went to London, did a mission with a group working on the London stone, and that is the portal in from the Anunnaki as a major kind of, let's say, hijack on our planetary operating system and how it's been rebooted. And today I'm going to send you a free gift, the Planetary Operating System Primer. It's an audio transmission. You can get the link in the comments below, and you can listen to this audio this equinox and bring your dreams and visions of the sort of golden age or your vision of a better world and place that into the Planetary Operating System. It's going to prime the Planetary Operating System as we move from hierarchy to synarchy. More on that in a minute. So anyway, let's get into the equinox. I mean, can you imagine we're here already? Wow, it's just going by so fast. So we're 3 months into it. And so where are you in relation to your objectives for 25? It's a pretty good idea to always check what's going on for yourself. Are you on track? And you might be thinking, wow, time's moving pretty quickly and it's speeding up in the last year or two. And I'll give you my best guess at why time feels to be speeding up. And what I sort of track is, of course, we've moved from the heavier elements of earth and water, which was being the broadcast for the last couple hundred years anyway, for the majority of the planets. And what we're seeing in these last few years this move into the finer and more ethereal elements of air and fire. And of course, we've got a couple more moving. And so this air and fire energies have a lighter quality. And of course, when we're talking about the spiritual dimension, there's no past, present, or future. There's only now. But in the physical domain, we perceive time to be moving progressively, moving linearly along. So we, in the physical domain, perceive time to be moving through a fixed point of space. But actually, the opposite is true. It's actually space that's moving through a fixed point of time. And so in the spiritual dimensions, there's only now. And what's happening is a different energy, frequency, and consciousness is moving through the point of now reference. And as that happens, there's a astrological shift that slowly moves over time. There's the big macro cycles of the precession of the equinox, these big grand cycles, and then there's all the micro cycles within all of that. But essentially, if you watched my last video or you were on my mail list and you read it, we're moving in to this portal right now of this equinox, which is all about a time of balance and resetting and officially movement out of the dark age, out of the Kali Yuga. And so the Vedic philosophers, and astrologers have got this pegged for around about now, the equinox of 2025. So this is a major, I feel, kind of marker. And we hopefully now, this big macro cycle we've been in of darkness is starting to shift. I know that you can feel it in the air. I can certainly feel it in the air. There's definitely light at the end of the tunnel, at least in our own journey, where you see Alea and myself and the core team have been going through such density and such darkness as kind of part of, I guess, the cleanup crew who have been tasked with going into the big shadow states of the planet and cleaning up some of that dark architecture, certainly within ourselves and certainly within the planet. And you can do that work yourself by going into the deep, deep, deep energetic, let's call it soul psychology work, which works on the darkness of the soul stream and ends up finding these entire networks that we can access and collapse. And that's what we've been doing in these last years. And we're sensing these big changes in the planet, but we can sense now a lightness that is starting to come through. We're not out of the woods yet. Of course, what happens is it's really in this Aquarian age, it's really the collective consciousness that decides. So whatever 50% of the population is tuning into, is it love or is it fear, comes to be. So what we're witnessing is this transition and change where many people are coming more into the heart and getting to see through the illusions, are beginning to see through the, let's call it, control systems, and are visioning a better world. The control system is doing its best it can to keep a broadcast of fear. The mainstream media does a great job of broadcasting fear and trying to keep people locked in a bandwidth. Some people will never get out of being phase locked within the mainstream media narrative. Some people are broadening their consciousness and can see on the edges, on the outside, and sometimes see all the way through clearly what's kind of happening. My role, and I guess some of the things that I have been sharing mainly by email over these last years, and now coming into YouTube or coming into some more video sharing as our personal risk is coming less, is that, we look at the full vertical of energy, frequency, and consciousness and all the different dimensions, all the different agendas, all the different architectures going through these different dimensions. So to say that is that when I'm sharing, I'm looking at the full totality of the stack of consciousness that's happening. And right now, being in the transition point out of the dark age into sort of more this golden age, and of course, because we're talking sort of longer periods of time, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a transitional period. We're coming out now of the low tide and coming into a rising higher tide. And so that takes time. But to assist us, what I wanted to do was to offer a free transmission to anyone watching this called the to Planetary Operating System Primer. Now, a little bit of the backstory I'll go into later, but the Planetary Operating System, just as a quick heads up, was installed back in 2023 after we took a group to London and managed to go get and do a reboot on that Planetary Operating System. I'll give you a little bit of intel of what happened later in this little broadcast. But for now, all you need to know is that there's a transmission you can see in the comments. You can download that transmission, and that will allow you to load your own vision of the planet's highest potential into this new planetary operating system, which is kind of like the mainframe of our planet as we move off hierarchy and into synarchy. And so as we reach the March equinox, which is around about now, we're stepping through this, really potent cosmic gateway that promises to accelerate transformations already happening on the planet. But this particular equinox feels potent because it's leading us directly into this kind of partial solar eclipse in Aries on March 29, literally only a week or so later. And so we've got this double whammy of this double portal of transformative energy. So keep an eye out for that, and this will help prime your energetics. So download that free transmission. So let's drop into this Equinox Gateway. And equinoxes are all about balance. So you can kind of consider this the balancing act before the breakthrough. And so this is this perfect equilibrium point on the equinoxes where things stand in perfect balance. It's like this cosmic exhale before the inhale of spring or autumn if you're in the southern hemisphere like I am. So this balancing pause represents, what I've been describing about our collective state. We're in the space between inhalation and exhalation, between expansion and between stasis and between contraction and expansion. We're in the stasis. We're in this exhalation of this much now larger cosmic breath is about to breathe out. And so in this particular timing now, we've got these astrological alignments. There's this opposition between Mars that's in Aries and Pluto that's in Capricorn. So there's this little amplification of ambition, maybe assertiveness, a little bit of that kind of desire, but a desire for, I might call it, authentic change, because it's coming into we're in an extraordinary time, right? So if you're someone who's on the conscious path, this energy offers a really great potential force for you for transformation, but you've got to channel it wisely, or it can manifest more as power struggles or anger or unnecessary conflict, because we've got a little bit of that yang Mars energy thrown into the case there. Now, also what's happening is that there's this potent T-square involving Mars and Pluto in opposition, and you've got this Sagittarius full moon. And so this is stirring up this restlessness, this rebellion against kind of limitations, and a craving for freedom that can't really be contained. And so you might be feeling this urge to break free from constraints, speak your truth without filters, and boldly expand beyond your current boundaries. And exactly that's how I'm kind of feeling, starting to speak my truth a little bit more and keep things that was just reasonably, when a very small grouping of people knew what was going on, start to just filter this out a little bit in the wider world. And so these transits bring, a lot of power for change. And this is really what we're in now, this double whammy of this portal. So you might feel this intensity as the pressure builds up to act with consciousness amongst this kind of chaotic energy. So we've got this grounding influence of Venus in Taurus, which is helping to stabilize things, reminding us to kind of stay connected to what really matters, and appreciation for life's simple pleasures, self-worth, gratitude, recognizing the abundance that already exists inside of us, our family, our friends. And so this is really a great timing in this time of balance to drop into that Planetary Operating System primer meditation. I first released it 18 months ago, but during this window, use this to enhance your own manifestations of your vision, but also supporting in the stabilization of the planetary upgrade of the Planetary Operating System. So I'll jump into that more deeply, but first I want to get into some stuff about the eclipse season. And, as we come into eclipse, we all know that this is a time of intensity. So we're starting off with a partial solar eclipse, which is going to supercharge a new beginning for us, hopefully. So just after the equinox, literally a week or so later, March 29th, we've got this partial solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries. And so don't let this concept of partial fool you. This is going to pack a bit of a punch because there's also a supermoon. And so the supermoon is just magnifying the influence of this eclipse. And so it's the kind of, final chapter in this Aries and Libra series, bringing completion to a lot of themes around balancing the self with relationships. And this has been unfolding since 2021. So it's important because we're coming to the conclusion of that, marking a new beginning. And there's this alignment with North Node, right? And the North Node's like our kind of collective destiny point. And while it's also connecting in with Venus and Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, which, I think I mentioned last one, that 0 degrees is the potent, Aries is the start of the astrological kind of circle or circuit or cycle. So Venus and Neptune zeroing out in Aries really tells us it's a starting point of the zodiac. And so this configuration places these themes like of creation, unconditional love, and divine inspiration really on the wider global stage because of the broadcast coming into our planet. And Mercury will also cross 0 degrees Aries on the same day. And so this is just going to amplify this cosmic reset and new beginnings and thoughts and communications. And so, some astrologers are saying, hey, just be cautioning against new initiatives during this eclipse energy because of the potential for some blind spots. But I kind of see it differently, So if you're someone who's done their shadow work and are aligned with your higher calling, right, this is a great opportunity to plant powerful seeds of intention, especially related to your authentic expression, your courage, and a real pioneering kind of energy to go forward. If you're still kind of, let's call it, triggered easily, I might not be setting intentions on this kind of eclipse energy because of the shadow states might that get pulled up from Pluto, and you might get blindsided by something. But if you've done the deeper work and actually you're at least in a little point of centeredness and you're not getting triggered all the time by external energies that you're attracting because of the wounding inside of you, you're going to be okay to plant seeds. And so if you're in the state of being quite centered and still, and you've anchored in stability and coherence in your system, let's plant these seeds. Why not? We all desire to see, the earth change. And let's face it, astrologically speaking, at least, in God's cosmic clock, the time of hierarchy and control is over. So let's seed this intention of synarchy, synergy, synchrony, this beautiful working together. Let's drop into this 0 point and reset that energy, frequency, and consciousness together. And the audio transmission that we've created really seeds that powerful priming straight into the new planetary operating system. Okay, and I'll come to the POS, Planetary Operating System, more and once I finish my astrological update, talk a little bit more about what it is in case you're new to it. So there's something really powerful about the sacred power of 0 degrees, and this incredible resetting energy. 0 degrees in Aries is the kind of cosmic architecture. It represents not just another degree on the zodiac wheel, but the alpha point of the entire astrological system, the 0 point, the start. And so what happens is that when a planet's touching this degree, it's as though it's being reborn, shedding the accumulation of the karmic weight of the old cycle and beginning a completely new evolutionary cycle, but just at a higher octave of expression. So it's not merely moving from one room to another, it's stepping through a dimensional gateway, a totally fresh vibrational field. And so the 0 degrees Aries is for me this really pure, unfiltered essence of divine fire. That initial spark, that's a better one. That initial spark of creation from which manifestation comes from. It's the let there be light, that moment where potential becomes actuality. So whenever, planetary bodies have crossed over into this threshold, we've not witnessed incremental shifts but quantum leaps in human consciousness, and not only human consciousness, social structures. So the energy at the 0 degree mark is the birthing energy. It's raw, it's primordial, and it can't help but initiate transformation, burning away this kind of accumulated debris of previous cycles, clearing the space for something new. And the US is leading the way of all of this, is exactly what's happening. There's a fire going through the structures and the systems, and everything's coming up and everything's being cleared out. There's something new that's happening because you've got to burn down the old forest to build a new one. So as we carry on that, we've got Neptune entering Aries on March 30th. And this is, the first time since 1861, right? So Neptune's not been in Aries since 1861. So it marks the beginning of a very long cycle that will reshape our collective sort of spiritual consciousness. And so Neptune in Aries represents this dissolution of old paradigms to create new space for new visions and inspiration to emerge what might feel like chaos, right? As it's and from the external view, looking into what's happening in the world, it's chaotic out there. So much drama and things that are going on. But, it's important to understand that the most important and profound creations arise from what appears to be a primordial soup, that state of productive chaos that leads to a greater enhanced order. So it's going to be chaotic, but that's necessary to go through things. And the year is, really important because we've got this massive cosmic reset of Neptune and Saturn. These two planetary bodies entering Aries at 0 degrees as well. The ultimate cosmic reset. Neptune enters Aries on the March 30th, as I mentioned, followed by Saturn on May 25th. So close together, two big, outer planets coming through within sort of, 2-3 months of each other. And so the 0 degrees is that potency, pure potentiality where all possibilities exist. And so 0 degrees isn't just a 0 point, that's the beginning of that cycle, as I mentioned. And so we've got Neptune and Saturn both crossing this threshold within a couple months of each other. A double rebirth, right? Completely reformatting our spiritual vision, but also our capacity to hold structure. And that's Saturn, right? Which is all about structure, reality in alignment with divine principles. And if anything's out of alignment, Saturn's going to come around and bust it apart. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. So what makes this cosmic reset even more remarkable is that these two planetary, behemoths, the big titans, Neptune and Saturn, won't pass like ships in the night. They actually spend several months together in the early degrees of Aries. And the closest approach is going to be happening mid-July. So keep an eye out for mid-July, where they'll just be 12 minutes apart, somewhere between 1 and 2 degrees Aries. It's going to be like whoosh, both the Neptune and Saturn energies really like just tightly compressed at the 1 to 2 degree mark Aries. So this is going to be like, wow, July? Okay, it's like almost an exact conjunction, and it's a really powerful, I think, astrological alignment, maybe even of our life. I don't know. I mean, think of the moment when these dissolving waters of Neptune and the structured force of Saturn merge their energies at the birthplace of the whole zodiac. So as we have that and the entering of Neptune into Aries, since the 1800s, this big long cycle of collective consciousness. It's the representation of the old paradigms, create new visions, new space from what might feel like chaos, right? So, and then coming to Saturn, it's the first time since the 90s, 1996, I believe. So it's bringing this disciplined, structured energy to the pioneering sign of the Ram. So this transit initiates a new cycle of manifestation where both our visions and ideas are going to be tested against reality to build into lasting form. So Saturn bringing the structure is like the architect of this new world. So as you're looking at your, say, personal systems for how you're living life, but any system that you're developing with a structure, with a foundation that's going to align with, divine inspiration and I guess divine will, you need to make sure that your systems and structure are aligned to that, because otherwise Saturn's just going to blitz it apart. And I think the old structures and old systems we see on our planet, Saturn's going to come and just bust those open, right? So Neptune might dissolve the boundaries, and a support with that, and Saturn kind of really busts them open, but Saturn's also going to birth the new ones, right? Not as limitations, but think of it as kind of containers for growth. So as Saturn starts to come in and we all start to be inspired by that frequency coming through our consciousness, we'll start to build the new structures, the new systems of the earth that's going to keep evolving for a long time to come. So this true innovation, is not just about vision, but disciplined, focused action. So think about building systems as we get to July. What are the systems you're building that's going to support your visions, that's going to be aligned with the new earth? That is really where you want to be focusing on. So Neptune, the planet of spiritual consciousness and disillusion, interfaces Saturn, the planet of structure, boundaries, and manifestation. So we can bring our higher visions, right, into concrete reality in a brand new way. And let's face it, the Aquarian way, right, is not the Piscean way. We can expect to manifest in a very different way. So this energy is, not just about dreaming bigger. It's about building those dreams into tangible structures. Think of systems, right? What systems and structure do we need? And this is a great time to be building that. And as you do, you can, this conjunction as we're stepping into it was where the veils between inspiration and implementation dramatically come together. So if you've been doing your shadow work, you'll find yourselves able to manifest your spiritual insights easier, right? That's the cosmic architect, Saturn, working hand in hand with the divine dreamer, Neptune. So our collective experience, right? What are we going to see? I've been speaking personally, but what about collectively, right? So new systems, new structure that better reflect our spiritual values. The old institutions that have lost their way and lost their soul are going to crumble, and new forms that are going to integrate both the spiritual consciousness of this era we're in, but also with really grounded practical wisdom. So we've got this pre-wave happening in the US right now, so much revealing happening of the waste. I think, the Department of Government Efficiency is doing a great job of, highlighting self-serving happening in the political landscape. More people are becoming aware that this centralized system is serving itself. And there's unelected bureaucrats that are serving themselves and running the system, don't want it to change. They've bought the media, so they own the media, so they get to blast that trumpet for those that are still listening to that wavelength. But I think the idea that's being seeded, despite the best attempts of mainstream media, is going to sort of populate this kind of collective action that is going to demand that these old ways of doing things, are going to change. There has to be a willingness to build something new rather than simply transforming all that already exists. We can't build the new off the back of the existing. The existing has to crumble completely. So if we take a look at when Neptune and Saturn last met together in Aries, it was back in the first 1025 CE, over 1,000 years ago, right? 1025. This is like once in a 1,000-year alignment. So historically, when you see something so rare as this, as two outer planets, coinciding, we watch it with this incredible shift in human consciousness, right? So we've got this entire energy here, the spiritual warrior energy of Aries infuses his planets with this pioneering courage, moving from observing into action. And so if we take a look back, 1,000 odd years ago, this reshaped our civilization. For example, if we take a look at the early 11th century, what was going on around that time? Because history always gives us a glimpse of the future. I love what Winston Churchill said: the further back you go, the further forward you can see. So essentially what was happening around that time is that in the Islamic world, revolutionary thinkers like Ibn Sina produced the Book of Healing around 1025, and that completely revolutionized medicine and philosophy. He was a polymath, and he was creating comprehensive works on astronomy and mathematics that would influence scientific thought for generations. And Canute the Great created a North Sea empire, and this was uniting England, Denmark, Norway. And the Chola Empire in India reached its peak. Expanding trade networks and shipping and all across Asia. We've got the Byzantine Empire under Basil II, who died exactly at that time. Was at the height of its power. And then also the Song dynasty was developing the world's first paper money between that point, revolutionizing, economics and trade. And we also, saw these major shifts in spiritual consciousness. The Viking Age was ending, right? And Christianity spread northward, and that forever reshaped European spiritual cultural identity. We began construction of massive cathedrals. The Chartres Cathedral began, and they had started to make sort of much more sacred architecture that would, define the European landscape for ages through the way that they would build cathedrals. And Islamic culture around the same time was expanding through Central Asia. And so there's all these, massive innovations that fundamentally changed how we communicated with ourselves, right? So we've got this whole kind of background story of how we developed and expanded. And so as that kind of, marker 1,000 years ago, 1025, wasn't just the political shifts, but, a whole changing of our human systems, from economics to spirituality to artistic expression to scientific understanding. So as we approach this, say, 1,000 years later, 2025, it's the same transformational potential, like once in a millennia opportunity to almost reimagine our civilizations from the very core, from the foundations, infused with spiritual vision, practical sustainability. And so this is a great time, I think, for us to bring our consciousness into it. So this brings me to the gift, the Planetary Operating System. This is a little backstory on that. Think of the Planetary Operating System like a computer operating system. It's got its coded its ability to organize and to process information. And if you think of your Mac computer or PC computer, there's a framework there. And basically you install your programs on the operating system. And essentially what I'm asking you to do is, why don't you begin installing your programs, i.e. your intentions, onto this new operating system? Because it recently reset itself in 2023. And, this is, how you can bring your consciousness into a new operating system on the planet. And so the planet's consciousness provides a framework for organizing and processing information. It creates the templates for the formation of society, culture, knowledge, systems, shaping kind of this incredible collective behavior, decision-making processes. And so similar to a computer operating system, it facilitates communication, coordination amongst the software or the programs that are on it. The consciousness of the planet allows for an exchange of information and experiences between different conscious beings, And so when you install a new computer system, right, when you got to, get a new computer, or you want to upgrade the operating system, you also need to, install new applications. So, for example, imagine moving from a PC, and then you change over to a Mac, right? So you're using, Windows, then you're going to start using Mac OS, iOS. The programs on the PC won't work on the programs on the Mac. So this is what I mean by the new planetary operating system. The old programs that have been loaded are not working in the new one. They're not being sustained anymore by the consciousness of it. So new programming needs to be installed, and my invitation to you is now is a great time to install them. We're coming to the end of the Kali Yuga. We're in the balance where the energies of creation are the best, because we need equal feminine and masculine consciousness to birth something new, especially something Christic. And we can see this whole new upgraded applications need to be laid in to this planetary operating system. And so what we found when we were in London was that the Earth's planetary operating system had been hijacked by the Anunnaki and coded into the London stone in London. And when we were able to provide a massive upgrade of this, we were able to take out the Anunnaki operating system with the group there and install the Earth's and humanity's original organic operating system, which is all about cooperation, synergy, synarchy, synchrony, working together, right? Rather than hierarchical. The hierarchical operating system came from the Anunnaki operating system, is how they run their society. Anunnaki's hierarchical from the top down, and the power and is implemented top down on everything. But we're not entering in this age anymore. That's been collapsed. And so I think for any of those of you who are holding this vision of a higher line towards humanity, this is the energy and broadcast to place it in. So run the meditation. It's just going to guide you through a process of loading up your intentions into the planetary operating system and start to sort of work with it. Play it time and again. Please, we need to strengthen the planetary operating system. So that's my little gift to you all. I hope you enjoy that. Let me know in the comments what you think of the transmission and how you're feeling it and what you think of this video. Just to sort of close, I want to just, how do we navigate through this time? So we've got to first up honor both sides of the equinox energy. It's a balance point between action and reflection, right? Between rest and action, between breaking free and staying grounded. It's the sort of space between breaths. And so you can use it as a powerful manifesting tool, right? A manifesting portal, rather than sort of not dropping into manifesting intentionally because of the shadowy pieces that can bring up. If you've done the work and you've done the shadow work, you can prepare yourself by getting clear on what you really desire. This eclipse energies will accelerate manifestation. So let's use it, right? This is the time to kind of get into it. But, be impeccable with your thoughts and intentions and emotions and actions, right? And, it's important also at this time, Neptune and Aries is calling us to bring our higher spiritual vision into courageous action. So activate that warrior inside of you, the spiritual warrior. It's no time for bypassing, but courage, right? And just pay attention to the cosmic signposts. I mean, right now during eclipses, this is where we all get squeezed through a little bit. The universe is going to communicate through synchronicity, codes, meaningful encounters, animal spirits that come across your path. These are all coded messages guiding you through this shift. With all this cosmic energy coming in, stay grounded, stay connected of your body to Earth. Remember, we believe in embodied ascension, that not having our consciousness leave our body to ascend somewhere else, but to bring our higher consciousness down into our physical body and ground it. God is looking for conduits for divine will on the planet, and you need to be grounded to become a conduit for God's intent happening on the planet. So please ground in. We're in a time of intensity and we're in a time of hope. And they're accelerating our collective emergence from this very long dark night of the soul, sort of we've been in the Kali Yuga, to the promised exhalation, when we begin to start seeing changes in our physical reality. Don't fear the change of things crumbling, right? This is a sign that things are moving forward. Just enjoy the surging through these celestial gateways. Focus on really what matters. Love, connection, joy, service to others. Remember, your most important resources are inside of you. The resources of your heart and the sacred connections that you nurture. Humans are remarkable. We're remarkable. You're remarkable. We're all remarkable. Right? Let's just bring this remarkableness into action by visioning the world together. I love you. Enjoy the planetary operating system meditation, and I hope to see you next time.